Many of us have been watching in horror as the revelations of nanotechnology, synthetic biology, and the attempts to cyborgize humans have been unfolding before our very eyes. In today's interview, researchers Hope and Tivon brought something to light that truly shocked me. Not because we didn't know it was all related or that it was coming, but because we now have it on paper. Potentially real hard evidence of the technology that may be used to implement the mark of the beast, which in its current stages seems is being referred to as the bio-cyber interface, and it's, you guessed it, in the right hand. This is truly world first information. I haven't seen it anywhere else, so I'm asking everyone to share this interview widely. Share it with every single person you know and ask them to consider exactly which technologies we are being introduced to, unknowingly or unknowingly, could lead to their unsuspecting compliance with this system. Digital ID is intricately linked with this, as is biometric surveillance. This is information none of us have really seen before, and this interview also includes some groundbreaking solutions which scientists have been working tirelessly on. So without further ado, here's Hope and Tivon. Hope and Tivon, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate you being back here.
It is so great to be here, and we are really excited to share some of the latest research with all of your listeners.
Thank you for having us back, Marianne.
Oh, absolutely. Anytime. I am always very, very excited to hear what you two have been working on. Some of our interviews in the past have been some of the most groundbreaking that we've done. I mean, we've shown the ability of scientists to aggregate luciferase inside different areas of the body, namely the forehead and tails of, rodents. We've shown that the plans of the Internet of Bodies, the Internet of Things, how this all relates to the injection agenda and transhumanism in general. And I mean, this agenda is accelerating so quickly. I don't think that people truly understand.
It's not only accelerating quickly, it's been around for a lot longer than a lot of people have realized. We're talking decades, and that's because they've been hiding it, but there's a group of people, not just us. I mean, there are some phenomenal scientists out there who have been using microscopes to uncover things that we weren't allowed to see before. And so this is like the real evidence right in front of your face that's really bringing it out and disclosing this to the rest of humanity. They've been going full steam ahead, and now we're discovering what's been done to us. But this particular episode, I want to make sure everybody knows that while we will show you some of the latest research of the bad stuff, there's been some incredible breakthroughs on like getting nanotechnology out of your body, turning it off. So please be sure to stick around for the solutions part, because we just want to cite some other people's work about the breakthroughs, because there is actually hope. We feel much more hopeful in this presentation than I think we have in any of the other ones we've done before, because we've seen some really incredible, like I said, breakthroughs that are helping humanity.
I also think this presentation is more of just tying things together that we've covered previously. Now that we know that there are doctors who are actively looking under the microscope and providing solutions to what they're finding.
Well, I think that that's so important for people to realize. It's really funny how this whole thing has happened, because when we all sort of collectively, or the ones who weren't afraid to, started addressing what's in the C19 injections, what's in our food, what's in our skies, we sounded like a bunch of crazy people to those who were too afraid to look into this. But once you look at the track record of the transhumanism agenda, start reading into the papers, start looking into graphene oxide, start looking into how they say in their own words that this is a miracle semiconductor that's going to power up everything, and we need to, have graphene in everything. This is crucial for the Internet of Bodies and the Internet of Everything. And you look at the connections with the satellites, and I mean, all of their published works when it comes to this stuff just confirms what we've been looking into. And I'm so grateful for you guys and all of the people who weren't afraid to look into this, because what it means is that we can present solutions. Now, this is all obviously still in the early stages, but people are looking at it, people are getting results. And so this is the hope of it. Initially you may seem like, oh, why are you talking about this weird stuff? And then all of a sudden, oh, humanity has a solution. So I'm grateful that you guys weren't afraid to do it from the beginning.
Yeah, we felt, we love God, And we feel very, very led and driven by our creator to
Yes.
do this, and to just in these moments, take away some time from our busy lives to try to put this information together to help anybody else that is seeking for some answers and who has the ears to hear and the eyes to see.
Wonderful. Well, I know our audience really enjoys the information that you two bring. You're incredibly well researched. You have a presentation for us today, so let's get into that.
Okay, well, we'll call this one Human Augmentation, a New Paradigm of Evil. For the summary, so they've been experimenting on all humans for decades with nanotech, synthetic biology, parasites, programmable bacteria, and much more. We'll talk about microscopes and what they don't want us to see, molecular communication and nanotechnology of the industry. There's a big conference happening in October.
Also, the government's plan for human augmentation. And then we're going to put it all together, the nanotech, the graphene, the bacteria, the yeast, the parasites, venom, EMF.
We'll talk a little bit about what we're calling the white paper wars. You might find that interesting. Finding nanotech in the vax versus the unvax. A lot of people are talking about that. We're going to explain why. Quantum dots and contrasting agents.
Also, the EU's new entry-exit system for kiosks for biometrics at all major airports starting in November.
And also breakthrough solutions, orgone for grounding, chelating nanotech out of the body. And we do have a blog post that we'll send you so that you can link this to the video with tons of links and videos and everything that we're referencing here as usual, so that people can go and look these things up for themselves.
That's great. So I'm already excited, but the EU new entry system, it's fascinating because all countries are implementing something like this. The US is not far off as well. So they are all, you can see this approach, digital ID, everyone's introducing it this year. They want it finalized. Social media bans for certain ages because you need to verify your age by the end of 2024. Entry exit systems, biometrics, everything is happening. It looks like they want this all in place by next year.
Yes, the EU is starting something. You know what? I forgot to put this in these slides, so let's make sure that we don't forget to talk about this. It's just a link to the UK.gov website announcing the EU new entry and exit system that will be implemented on November 4th.
Yep.
And basically what they're saying is that they're spending a ton of money to set up kiosks at every single major airport going into all of the European countries that you have to go through and give your biometrics in order to enter any country in Europe.
Right.
Now they say biometrics is the fingerprints and photo ID. But because of what we've been learning and researching with the Wireless Body Area Network, which is like the secret wireless network that they're using to track and trace everyone and do other things, I'm pretty sure that they'll be scanning your body in order to enter you into a database in order to go into the EU. The Real ID in America, there's something that's very similar.
Yes.
Because that's been coming up too. I think Australia has already implemented digital IDs.
Yes, it's been passed in legislation. They're not mandating it yet, but mind you, 3 days after they passed the legislation, someone went to renew their electrician's license, and he was told, no, you can't without a digital ID. And he said, hang on a minute, this is a voluntary program. Now, granted, after several days of arguing with them, he was able to renew his electrician's license because the government in their own legislation says you cannot mandate this. But he lost several days of income arguing with them over this. So it's already problematic. Just 3 days after the legislation passed, they were already trying to enforce it on people.
Yeah, and what else comes to mind is that show we did with you a long time ago, talking about how they were scanning people at the airports.
Yes.
For the luciferase. I can put a link to that in the notes for this so people can go revisit that. But that's basically what they're going to be doing with these kiosks, and it's all to enter everyone into the new database. And we know that with COVID, they had the COVE-W ban, which was the database for everybody that was on, through the COVID, that they were tracking and tracing everybody there. So with that started, let's go ahead and get started. We're going to take everybody on a little bit of a journey This is about microscopes and what they don't want us to see. So the stuff that they've created a whole bunch of things that nobody can see or feel or taste that embeds into our cells and augments humans, which is also transhumanism. They work with nanotech because you need a very expensive electron microscope in order to be able to see the evidence of what they have been creating. So they did this so that they would have plausible deniability when all these things started to happen and people couldn't see what they were doing, right?
Yeah.
That's why they're choosing nano, right? Which is very, very small. So this is a little bit of predictive programming. There's a new show, it came out like in 2023, I think, called Silo. I think it's on Apple TV. But I went and got Apple TV just so I could watch this show because I like to watch the predictive programming. It's a show that's about a post-apocalyptic world where everyone lives in a controlled society underground. And one of the rules in this society is that there's no magnification beyond a certain power.
Wow.
Yeah, the certain equipment is banned in their controlled
Yeah,
environment.
it's illegal,
You
right?
basically something larger than or more lenses than a magnifying glass would be considered illegal.
And so
Wow.
the purpose of this is to quell the scientific advancement of the society or the normal people and stunt the intellectual growth of the entire community. The same thing is happening right now in our scientific community.
Mm.
So it's because they don't want you to see. So you have to ask, what is it they don't want us to see? So talking about microscopes, this picture on the left here is the microscope, the illegal microscope
That was banned.
that they made in this show, where they had to take glasses and different components and put them all together in order to get the magnification down to a certain point. And it's very similar to Rife's microscope.
So you might have heard of the of Rife's microscope and how he learned how to make his own specialized microscope when he was an apprentice for a German scientist when he was young. And basically, it was using a series of lenses. I can't remember how many dozens or more of lenses he had to basically polish and grind in order to get magnification using light of being able to observe the bacterial world real time. And that technology, I don't think has ever been made available to the human population since his microscope was confiscated, ever since his initial research. But this was a specialized piece of equipment. Because of what it was able to do, it allowed him to be able to come up with a method of using electrical signals as a means of curing and getting rid of bacteria. But in order to do that, he had to be able to observe their behavior real time under a microscope that operated by visible light.
And let's not forget that Rife worked with frequencies. And
Yes.
this is what you need to see. You need this level of magnification in order to see what frequencies can do to bacteria and cells and things in the body, which brings us to the electron microscope. Now, if you're not a scientist, maybe you have no idea what's going on with electron microscopes, but in order to see this nanotechnology, I mean, we've seen some stuff in some other microscopes. There's many different kinds of microscopes, but in order to really see what this technology is doing clearly, you need an electron microscope. Electron microscopes, they start at about $75,000 and they go up to about $10 million. Right. So
yes, incredibly expensive. So they've made it inaccessible
yes.
to the everyday
Yes.
person.
A financial barrier.
That is the
Yes.
barrier to entry. This is why average people can't afford to see this stuff. So electron microscopes are what you need to truly see the technology. All the electron microscopes are owned by the universities.
Yes.
The universities are funded by Big Pharma.
I will say that there was an instance, I'm not going to name the doctor, but there was an instance where the contents of the COVID injections were sent off by a particular doctor who's well known, and they were sent off to a university, and the results came back, oh no, there's no graphene oxide here.
Mhm.
Well, these universities are not going to tell you the truth about
Right.
what's going on. And so this
Right.
is not credible to just say, oh, no, we've confirmed there's no graphene oxide. Hang on. Sorry, what?
Yeah.
Exactly.
And, I want to let everybody know that just recently, Dr. Group and Dr. Brian Artis and some other doctors from the Healing for the Ages conference, they just got together and they used funding that they had from previous conferences to purchase an electron microscope. So
Amazing.
there is now a team. They call themselves the Transhumanism Research Rebels. And so they're using this microscope, right? And this is like super new. Like they just got it like a few weeks
It's
ago.
really exciting.
Okay.
Really
Amazing.
exciting.
So they're using this electron microscope to try to run all different kinds of tests to show what this nanotechnology is doing inside of humanity.
That is fantastic news.
Yeah, it's great news, and I'm really excited. You should definitely go check out the most recent Healing for the Ages conference. It was absolutely incredible. There was so much, and we'll put a link to it in this presentation as well, because they've done some great work. And this is just, we want to honor the work of the brave microscope army, as we call them.
So in addition to them, these are the other researchers in recent years that have gone out of their way to take the hardware they had available to them and to actually let's see what we're actually finding when we take samples out of volunteers and people, and to see what's actually going on here. We have the work of Dr. David Nixon, Dr. Anna Mahalsha, of course, Lakita Columna team. We have Matt Taylor, Dr. Lee, Maria Chrysler. And see, all of these people have done all this great work with the equipment they have access to show the different phases of human transhumanism. And this is what we found over the last couple of years based on their findings. The phase 1, they've seen the quantum dots lighting up in the blood. They've seen self-assembling. They saw hydrogel formation. And then they saw synthetic red blood cells.
That's pretty new. Yeah.
So now, in addition, they saw nanotech inside synthetic parasites. We're also referring to the work of the latest conference that Hope just brought up. So they saw tech inside synthetic parasites, which also dovetails to the work that we were pulling up in previous presentations, dealing with using bacteria and single-celled organisms to perform robot functions. As mentioned, as one of the universities, E. coli being the backbone of the fourth industrial revolution.
This is, if I can just pause you, Shimon Yanowitz, dear friend of mine, also was some time ago, he was highlighting the importance of bacteria, yeast, and E. coli in all of this. And so it's all sort of coming together at this point.
Oh, yes.
Yes, and the fact that they're finding this under microscope is no longer just something that, well, maybe that's what this is. Now that we have actual professionals where they have parallel fields in the industry actually researching this and doing for the greater good, finding these things and coming up with solutions that will tear these things apart. That's what we've been looking for the whole time.
Yeah.
So now we have, they're also finding nanotech releasing venom payloads based on the very same platform you just mentioned, Maria, combining these things together.
So, and just, I didn't have enough time to get to venom and venomics. And there's a whole study called venomics, which is they've been studying venom for a long time. So what they're doing is they put venom inside of nanotechnology.
So the industry.
As the payload, and then they put the stuff in you, and then they can beam that with the frequency to open up the capsule,
the poisonous payload later,
release the venom into your body at any time that they want.
Yeah, people might think that this is really out there, but I remember when Dr. Brian Artis did the Watch the Water thing with Stu Peters, and a lot of people criticized that, and whatever your opinions on this are, you can't deny the insane amount of purchasing that these people did of these sea snails, essentially, that carried this venom. And one of the side effects, which I thought were absolutely fascinating, that Brian Artis identified of this, I can't remember the exact name of the sea snails, but one of the side effects. Yes.
The cone snail, yeah.
Yes. So conotoxin, one of the side effects that he found was, and I don't want to misquote it, but being unable to accept facts, or being unable to accept the truth even when you are presented with facts. It's literally a listed side effect. I found that mind-blowing.
Yeah, he covers this in this conference as well. there's so many things that venom does inside of people's bodies, and
Mhm.
they are manufacturing like huge container ship full of this venom, and they're using it in skincare products, right, which goes right into your body. You know, it's not good, it's not anti-aging. It'll
Right.
get you in the ground quicker, right? But it's not anti-aging. So yeah, they're finding all of these things in addition to, oh, bee pollen. Bee pollen, they're seeing this under the microscope, is destroying
So
nanotechnology.
that's why they're attacking the bees, apart from the fact that they're essential to the ecosystem. That's another aspect.
Exactly. It pulls into different things that have happened over the years that didn't seem to make sense, right?
And
Right.
also ivermectin destroying nanotech structures. We've shown you that in some previous presentations.
Yep.
And then nicotine, EDTA, and DMSA also destroying nanotech.
And also removing the heavy metal components from the body.
Yeah, you want to think of those components as building blocks. Nanotech is building blocks
I
of
want to
all.
add one more to that list, if I may. When I was researching a very long time ago, and I wish I still had the paper on this computer. It was a different computer. And I was looking into hydroxychloroquine. Actually, I wasn't. I was looking into studies on graphene, and the scientists were saying we just cannot destroy this stuff. It's indestructible. And
Mhm.
then they found that there is a component of hydroxychloroquine which obliterates the nanotech. So this is why they went obliterates the graphene, sorry. So this is why they went to extreme
Yes.
lengths to ban hydroxychloroquine. I know there's a complete ban. There was a complete ban in
Yeah,
Australia.
it obliterates it. It shuts down the nanotech. It breaks it apart. It does, or it just doesn't make it work as well. It makes it harder for them to get a signal on it. Right? There's all different ways that this nanotech has weaknesses. So
Yes.
something that Dr. Ely said, Dr. Henry Ely said in the conference that we just attended, he said that the building blocks are the weakness. You know, so nanotechnology needs their building blocks in order to work, and the building blocks is the weakness. So if
Right.
you can figure out how to target the building blocks, you can disassemble, dismantle, destroy the nanotech.
And that is why we have done our presentations over the years. Maria, is when you look at the components, you realize what part is synthetic, what part is living. You know, like if they're using bacteria as one of the main infrastructures for this technology, then you want to find a way to tackle that bacteria. If it's yeast, the bacteria requires yeast or sugar, then you have to look at your diet. You
Right.
know, because again, was as magnificent as these perpetrators try to promote this transhumanist agenda. At the end of the day, it's got weak points, and it still obeys the laws of physics. So it's good.
Yeah, they're not God.
No,
Yeah, and I'm sure you've seen this. I don't know if you reported on it or not yet, but
Yes.
the recent long-term study by the Korean and Japanese scientists, this is Dr. Lee here in the picture. They took the COVID vaccines and they incubated them to recreate conditions in the human body, both short-term and long-term, and found nanotechnology developing. This was a real-time, the name of the paper is Real-Time Self-Assembly of Stereomicroscope sorry, visible that certain type of microscope. It was visible under that microscope, artificial constructions in incubated specimens of mRNA products, mainly from Pfizer and Moderna, a comprehensive longitudinal study. And this is important because it was a long-term study.
Yes.
You know, so they were showing what happened immediately after the vaccines were injected in a human body environment, and then also things that happened long term. So
and also it's very important because this is being done publicly in Japan, because it's
yeah,
one of the few nations that took it seriously when it was revealed that the Japanese government had betrayed its population. You know, with the loss of face and dishonor, there's been a public inquiry into these injections.
Yes.
So, I mean, I wish more countries would take it more on board, but Japan, for allowing this study to go forward, and more information is coming out, is very promising indeed.
It is. And it just shows you when people are legitimately outraged at the government that you can make strides. I'm just watching some of the action that's happening in Australia. They're just barreling forward, and there just aren't enough people. And I'm not disparaging the ones who are involved in trying to stop this. I'm talking about the ones who are not taking action. There just aren't enough people that are coming against this agenda. It's so when you have a population that's genuinely outraged, and you mentioned, honor being a massive thing for Japanese people, they take this extremely seriously. It's like number one priority in their society. When they feel that that the government has acted dishonorably, my goodness, there are consequences. So
yes,
yeah.
Absolutely. Now, this is Maria Chrysler. She works with the microscope. She's got an amazing background. She was part of the conference as well. And what you're seeing here, she's got this particular microscope, which is the Echo. And I put this up here because I want people to see the price of these things. Okay, this is 33,331 US dollars.
Yeah, let's get into this a little bit. Yeah.
Right. So this microscope is giving incredible images. So I took a couple of her slides. Obviously, I'm going to put links, and she's done some great videos where she really walks you through the stuff that she's seeing. But this particular slide here, what you're seeing are quantum dots. So all of these little specks, she puts it under a dark field, and then she fluoresces it in order to get it to light up. You have to beam frequencies at it in order to get it to light up. So this is all quantum dots. I believe this was in urine. They're finding it in urine and blood.
Especially during on the detox.
Yeah, especially
and
during
she's
detox.
saying these are biosensors?
Yes. Well, no, I'm sorry. These are the building blocks. I made a mistake here on my slide for the biosensor because I'm going to show you the biosensor that she found. Okay. So that's just in a couple slides. But first, I'm showing you the quantum dots that she's showing. That
would be like tags, basically. She looks like she's exposing the one on the left to red LED light. That's the 610 nanometers in the description there. And then the 555 nanometers to the right is the green spectrum. And showing me these things light up.
And this is a picture from her microscope. This blob here, this white blob, this is hydrogel, right? Clumped in with a whole bunch of red blood cells. And then these little like dots in the hydrogel, these little clumps, these are like payload capsules. I think she called them carbon dots. And they carry payloads of whatever it is that they want to release. So the hydrogel is loaded with all these little payload capsules.
You have to see how the clumping together is because the negative charge is being taken from the blood.
Yes.
That caused the really also, I want to mention just previously in that slide where you had her with a microscope. We want to also stress, as you well know, is Maria, is that that microscope was $33,000. Right. So these researchers that have the means are able to get this equipment through donations or support through people who actually do care, because basically everyone's suffered loss at some point, at some level here, and they're getting attacked, by the trolling online as if it's not enough, right? And as far as I'm concerned, if you want to strictly follow the scientific method, what's in that microscope is probably the most important thing right now to this entire, to unraveling this entire agenda.
More important than white papers.
It's the murder scene at the cellular level.
Because it's the evidence that everybody can see.
Yes.
I personally can't understand people that attack people that are trying to help. It doesn't make sense to me. I mean, I can understand that people are, sick and tired of the amount of fight and money and effort that it takes to defeat this agenda. I can understand that fatigue, but to be disparaging of people who are actually trying to do research to save people from becoming cyborgs, I can't understand this, so anyway, I mean,
I just want to mention that is that people are actually putting they're putting their wallet to into the fight. This is real. This is a real battle here.
That's what it takes.
It's really important. It's what it takes, and it's like for those who are just disparaging, they need to get off the battlefield, because this is really important that this this gets unraveled and people are healed from this atrocity.
Well, keyboard warriors, being a keyboard warrior doesn't cost very much. You've got the price of an internet connection and a basic phone. So I suppose they'll never understand. Anyway, let's
Right.
go on.
So this is the world's first biosensor. That's how they announced it at the conference. And I made this little looping video here. I'm going to press play. It's embedded into the slide. And you will see this biosensor. You'll see it move. It was taken from a double vaxxed living person. She used magnetic fields on it in order to activate it. So that's what the movement is, a magnetic field moving the biosensor. She writes here, I have demonstrated I can use a magnet field to influence the internal structure of the sensor. It's magnetic and was constructed by robots. Now, we have said in the past in our presentations that there are different kinds of biosensors.
Yes.
So this is just one of them. I think we named at least 4 different kinds.
Yeah.
But this is the first one that we've actually seen from a living person, we believe, that's been like caught on film.
And that's
right?
why this evidence is so important.
Yeah. So
Okay, so a few questions. When she says it was constructed by robots, I'm just thinking back to an interview that I did with Dr. Nixon where we
Yes.
had actual footage of these robotic arms forming the
Yes.
shape. So we're talking about that, okay?
yeah,
And
absolutely.
how do we know that this is a biosensor?
That's a good question. You'll have to watch her presentation because she's got more info on that than we
Okay.
do. Yeah.
I would
But
definitely,
they-
I'd love to speak with her
She's
because
she's very educated. This is her field. She's got all the degrees in this. She's got tons of years of experience in this. This is what she does professionally. So she had to go and study and learn what was technology inside of people, because she knows when she's looking at the blood, she can identify certain things because of her background and experience, but then she's seeing these other things that she's never seen before. So she's done the work and the due diligence to understand when it's tech. So when she says this is a biosensor, I'm
I think that'd be an amazing interview, by the way.
Oh my goodness.
yeah,
I'd
I'm
love to
just
see
thinking
that.
I need to speak with this
Yeah.
woman. So what I am, number one, I know for certain that something like that does not belong in the human body. Number
Mhm.
two, I know that they want biosensors throughout all of us. So that's, without a doubt, I know that that's the agenda because they talk about how biosensors will be used to connect you with your AI and the AI hive mind. And it's going to be checking. You can just reference my presentation on the Policy Horizons Canadian government document where they talk about biodigital convergence. And, you're going to have AI is going to be sort of sensing what you need in your body. And that day you're going to 3D print whatever you need from your counter because 3D printers are now, inexpensive. And that's how your future is going to be. You're not going to really decide anything for yourself because you have these biosensors that tell AI what you need. So I'm not at all doubting that these exist. I'm just wondering how we know that this is it. I'm going to go back and watch her presentation. And, if you guys are in touch with her, I'd love to speak with this woman.
Yeah, no, we aren't in touch with her. I actually just discovered her kind of recently. She didn't really come out before, but she's one of the people that's on that team of rebels. The
Amazing.
transhuman. Yeah, she's one of the people that's going to be using this electron microscope to run tests on transhumanism and what they're finding in the blood. So
this is a C19 injection, injected person's blood that we're looking at.
Yeah,
Yes.
it was actually one of her relatives, is what she said, who had 2 shots. So the person's alive, and this is coming from living blood, and she was able to get this sample and capture this with her. This was captured on that microscope that we showed you. It's a pretty incredible microscope. So
I'd be
we're
really
gonna-
interested to know, and
Yeah.
this is kind of a sick experiment, but I'd be really interested to know if there is some sort of, as a sort of next phase of their research, if we can get, IT people to see whether they can extract information from these biosensors. I'm saying it's a really
Wow.
sick
Yeah.
experiment, but it would be
Yes.
interesting to see what sort of data is being transmitted from it.
Yeah, that would be really interesting to see. And it kind of goes along with what I'm saying here, because the data gets transferred from one point to another point, right? So that's communications interception. So we're just trying to bring this into a holistic view to show people this is how they're targeting the entire population. They're using communications interception on all different kinds of levels,
Yes.
including molecular communications, how your cells talk to each
All
other
scales.
on all scales, wireless communications, the wireless body area network, communication industry, just in general, with all the cell phone towers and everything else, and also media communications, just,
The propaganda and the lies.
and the lies and the censorship. And
Yeah.
so this is just from the cybersecurity world. This is called the man in the middle attack. That's what they call this. It's where the attacker secretly relays and possibly alters the communications between two parties. This is a tactic also used by the intelligence agencies.
So let's just pause and think about how they actually are already manipulating the masses through the the propaganda in the media and
Yeah.
algorithms, right?
Yeah.
Now consider when they actually have direct access to your body because you're now
Mhm.
connected to the W band, and they can alter your thoughts, alter your body's functions, even alter your responses to
Yes.
certain information. This is something the Rand Corporation openly admitted to, saying we will have the ability to manipulate humans to do things they would not normally do.
Yes.
And we're about ready. Tivon's going to take over in just a bit because he's going to talk about this molecular communications nanotechnology conference that's happening at the end of this month
Great.
in October. But going back to Maria Chrysler's amazing slides, she's caught molecular communication in action. What you're seeing here is a bee pollen cell, and this is something that happens called macrophage. This is how a cell opens up and excretes something that's information that another cell will then take up. That's how cells communicate with each other. So she's catching molecular communication right here in action, which is absolutely incredible. So with that said, so you guys know that this is a real thing that happens with our cells in our bodies, let's talk about this conference.
Okay.
Well, so there's a conference coming up in Milan, Italy, this month on the 20th to the 30th of October, 2024. It's the 11th ACM International Conference on Nanoscale Computing and Communication. And just look on the right, the number of universities, the committee members from all the different universities that will be attending this conference.
This is the industry. When we say they, who is they, who's doing this to us, these are the people that are implementing this agenda and nanotechnology, right?
It's really amazing. When I was looking into the AI World Society, and I watched, these young, wide-eyed, bushy-tailed students from Lebanon.
College kids, yep.
And they were just, wanting to help the world. Their intentions were good and they wanted to be successful. And this guy's just brainwashing these kids, essentially saying, tell me what the future is, and getting them to repeat constantly, it's in AI, it's in the AI World Society. Just, brainwashing these kids in real time. I was watching it and my heart just broke for them, because you can tell these aren't bad kids.
Yeah.
No, they're not bad kids, but it's like they need a paycheck too.
Yep.
And they're the bright ones who put in the time and commitment to go through academia. And it's like, now at the end of that, when you're basically promised with the job, that job is to work for a tenured professor that's working for the DoD, that has laboratories in several countries, making nanotechnology that is inside everyone.
And then you're discarded because AI takes over, or that it's just drained you of all your knowledge and all of your talent. And now it's in a computer and we don't need you anymore.
There's a certain level of innocence that comes from ignorance when you're a college kid, right? You don't have all that, you haven't been beaten up too much yet in life, right? So it's like, at what point does it enter the mind of one of these 18-year-old college kids that I'm making nanotechnology that's destroying humanity, and that's wrong? Like, at what point does that happen? I mean, and that's the other part that's really hard. We might think, oh, it's a bunch of, old white men in a secret society that's doing this, but it's actually they're getting the college kids
to do the research.
Yes,
implement it.
Yep.
Your college kids. I mean, parents, do you really know what your kid's studying at school? right? You should start asking them. You should start asking them. Look at their textbooks. See what they're talking about, right?
All of these
Mhm.
professors, they function on, unless they're working directly for a corporation, they function on grant money. Even the ones in the conference that's coming up. I mean, a lot of these professors have been working for a long time, at least 20 plus years.
Mhm.
They survive. Their programs live and die on grant money, but the grants are like tens of millions of dollars. So that's how they're able to continue. I guess the reason why I'm bringing this up is as I'm about to go into this paper, we actually read, when we do citation, we actually read these papers.
Yeah, he spent a lot. He spent a
We
lot of
don't,
time reading this paper.
and we're starting to notice that some of these frontline doctor researchers that are coming out with what they've been sharing under the microscope, they've been trolled with people online slamming them with hundreds of links
Yeah.
to white papers, as if that's not you get beat to death with white papers.
Right.
But I think those Doctor, who was a Navy doctor who did the
Oh, Dr. Lee Merritt.
yeah, Dr. Lee Merritt.
Yeah,
Thank you.
we're gonna mention her.
We're going to mention her quite a bit because her presentation was also amazing in that conference that happened recently, where she talked about you need to discern what you're reading out of some of these papers. You need to look at who's funding them. You need to at the time, at the bottom of each white paper, if they're well written, they'll mention if there's any competition or if they were privately funded, who was funding their white paper. Also, you need to do sometimes due diligence and to see if the person who wrote the white paper is actually in their team, if the team members are actually real people.
Yeah,
Right.
she read one paper. It had like 30 authors, and she went and tried to look every one of them up, and none of them existed.
Oh,
There's
so yeah, they're already using AI to write their stuff. They're already using
yeah.
fake people to write their stuff. And so this is, you know, we're in
So
an age
this
where,
is poisoning the well. This is
There's
poisoning the
right,
well.
that's
a
what I was
lot of
about to
fraudulent
say.
white papers, and all of the white paper, or most of these white papers, they're all controlled by the same publishing industry. So we'll get into that a little bit later. But
Yes,
the reason for this paper, though, is because this person here, Massimiliano Parabon, member of the IEEE, he's one of the speakers, of course, with E&I Kildes, which we've spoken about before.
Extensively.
Yes, he's one of the people
he's very real.
that is at this conference coming up in October. So this paper that was written in 2019 is basically describing everything that they're going to be talking about and working on at this conference
Right.
this October, which is all focused on molecular communication and how they want to screw with your molecular communication.
And because it was written in 2019, before the nastiness of 2020 and beyond, it's kind of is written in kind of a fresh perspective.
Mhm.
Right.
Right. So we're just doing a summary of what was in this paper. By the way, it's we get a citation that it's on the IEEE database. If you put the title in the search engine now, anyone can download it for their own dissemination. So it's publicly available. But in summary, the authors talk about using molecular communication, which is a natural process in which all living molecules use. It's a biochemical process to relay information in biology. That's basically what it is. But they're using the advancements in wireless technology and actively researching molecular communication as a paradigm shift and using the technology to communicate with human beings, for their transhumanist agenda. Now, the primary application, like in a lot of the succeeding papers after this, is how this can be used to address human health. Yeah, the perspective of all of this, in order for it to be digestive, even in the academic community, is it has to be for human health. We know it's not for human health, but that's the angle they pitch it at.
Yes, it's optimum health. It's even the
Yeah.
biodigital convergence document. It talks about how, because we, it even talks about I'm getting a drone to come and pick up my child's tooth that just
Yes.
fell out so that we can go and check whether there's any diseases or anything that we need to address ahead of time for optimum health. This is the kind of it's always painted for that reason.
Yes, it's always a fantastic scenario that's never going to really see that in reality. We don't think it's going to get that far. Other things will happen before that. But we know that this is basically built on a weaponized program. But what I'm going to show you now is the illustrations that were in the white paper to summarize what they were talking about. Basically, they're describing that you'd have these engineered molecules that would represent bits of information, and you can have them inside the fluid of a body and still use them as a means to relay information inside the body. Even despite the normal flows of going through the bloodstream and being in the interstitial fluid, you can still use these molecules as a means of transmitting and receiving information. And of
Phenomenal
course,
in a
they
really
have a
bad way.
goal. They have a goal saying this is to fund their National Academy of Engineering for better medicines and advancing health informatics. That's another way of saying track and trace, being able to monitor, controlling you real time using these molecules.
Yep. Yep. Like a device.
Just like a device. And this illustration that they had in the paper,
This is a doozy.
it's interesting. So basically what you have, Maria, on the left side, you have the normal human organ system that includes all the different systems of the body, the circulatory system, cardiovascular, nervous system. On the right, you have the digital synthetic nanotechnology based system that is inside the body that would basically in the middle at the molecular scale is the interplay where you'd have like the molecules I mentioned before, the technology mentioned before, that would take the stuff, the living organic data and natural system and turn it into the digital synthetic information that would be transmitted inside the body and outside of the body. So what you have at below is basically I'm describing the scales going from the left side to the right side, which is the system, the organ, the tissue scale, to cellular scale, to the molecular scale where the cells are interacting with the synthetic nanobiology that they've put inside everyone's bodies, especially those of the injected, and then scale back up to the molecular communication components, to the molecular communication devices, and to the molecular communication synthetic networks that are inside and outside the body.
Which they say right here, bio-cyber interface.
And of course,
So,
you have that cloud, you have that nebulous internet cloud that's always attached to these.
I have a I'm struggling to see that picture in full. It's quite small on my screen, but
Here.
help me out
I'll
here,
make it
guys.
I think we can blow it up now.
Yeah, I'm sorry. We'll make it
That's
bigger.
okay. So,
Oh.
oops. Am I seeing correctly that the bio-cyber interface is on the right hand?
Correct.
Yes.
Correct. They say they try to do this natural systems dividing line between the natural systems on the left and synthetically engineered systems on the right. Because the picture speaks 1,000 words. Of course, with IF Achilles, Dr. Achilles, he's great at doing illustrations on how this stuff works. So what you see, what bridges the two sides is the molecular scale. And that's where you have the molecules that are the specialized designed molecules with their specially designed celled organisms, your E. coli, your yeasts, your synthetic, with the synthetic biology used to either make or act as biosensors to relay information within the network. As you can see on the right, you see MC devices, molecular communication
Yes.
devices. In the paper, he goes into specifics on what they are. Basically, these are the genetically engineered E. coli bacteria that have something in them that makes them do specific tasks, or they would have real robot systems inside of the E. coli that are acting as sensors, that make the E. coli act as sensors. Then the question becomes, how do you have something completely artificial inside bacteria? And that's where you can go into all these different directions on what's possible with this technology.
I'm literally looking at this, guys, and I'm saying this is the revelation of the Mark of the Beast system. It's there right in front of us. There is a bio-cyber interface indicated on the right hand. You can see that it goes up the right side of the body. It does, we have forehead markers there as well. So at any time it could interchange, I guess, between the two, but they've chosen the right hand itself to be the bio-cyber interface. That is absolutely a bombshell graphic.
Yes.
I need to look into that specific thing a lot more, but
Yes.
what you are witnessing right now, the people that are watching this, is the literal Mark of the Beast system in front of you.
Yeah.
Yes, and what's I guess what's important in that, Mark, also, Maria, is the to mentally and I guess spiritually accept that this is the norm, that this is normal,
Yeah.
that that it's okay to have this in your body. It's okay not to resist, but to just, take this as just as you would a Fitbit, you know.
Well, I'm just thinking about, because this is something, when I think specifically on the mark of the beast, it's something that people
Mhm.
will decide and choose to get. So they could very
Yes, it's a
well
choice.
be building this system now so that when the time comes to choose it, it's not an overtly, you know, it's not something that people aren't used to. It's not something that people will feel like is a huge leap forward. So they're
Yeah.
getting people used to this sort of stuff so that once you're used to having your bio cyber interface on your right hand, it'll be really, really easy to just go that next step. That's how I'm seeing this.
And I'm glad you brought that up because what's always stuck in the forefront of my mind through this whole thing with COVID and transhumanism has been, free will. God gave us free will, and God wants us to choose using our free will. So to think that we've got the mark of the beast and we didn't even know it because it was just done to us
Mhm.
without our knowledge, that's not necessarily the case. I,
No.
I firmly believe that you have to make that choice to do it. But we all do have nanotechnology in us.
Yes.
If you've been in any place in the planet where there's a chemtrail, there's nanotechnology in us.
In fact, if you look at the diagram up on the left, when it looks at the source of the different systems, and I'm looking at the second one, the biome gut brain drawing, where
This
it
one
shows
right
the
here.
source and it shows the esophagus. The
Food.
source is always from the outside, but look at that. It's like that's obviously from the environment, right?
And they have an injection
Those are
there too.
fresh.
Like they clearly
Yep.
tell you an injection is one of the
Yes, the source
sources.
for one for the circulatory is the injection, and the other sources are ones for from going to the esophagus and then the nervous system. It's an electrical stimulus. Those illustrations are put in there.
Yeah, and
Wow.
the microbe, the gut brain connection.
Mm.
Do you talk about that as well?
Well, in the paper, they go into more specifics. I had to summarize into a few slides, but basically it describes how intensive research is being done into, like the other university paper I keep bringing about E. coli being the backbone of the fourth industrial revolution. This bacterium is probably one of the most explored research by all these universities. Bacterium that keeps coming up in these papers is because they can program this thing to do all kinds of different tasks, including relaying information and especially to unraveling the secrets. They're trying to research ways of understanding communication, probably to also intercept communication between the gut and the brain,
Yes.
because we know there's a nervous network within the gut that some say is even more important than what's going on in the brain because of its importance.
So,
So
I can just chime in there
mm,
on the number of people that have cured depression, anxiety, various other mental health issues by changing their diet, by fixing
Mhm.
their gut microbiome, and bringing it back to a balanced level. There are, I mean, again, this is anecdotal, but there are even many studies to that effect as well, because there is that connection, and so it makes sense that as they attack the food that we eat as well,
yes, yes,
that's changing. It's not just people going and getting injected, it's also the things that we ingest, that's changing the human being.
yes. So this is to bring awareness to how that's happening.
Yes. Wow.
Okay.
This is sick.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you think about that, so this is the scale they're operating at. Now, towards the end, there's a small slide talking about some of the weaknesses. Actually, I'm not sure if that might not be in there or not, but we'll see. Um, these are just the four different in the paper. They mentioned the four primary experiments and some derivation of these four, where they're using to understand more what they can do with molecular communication. And it happens that three of them are dealing with bacteria. So the one on the left is an experiment where they were able to send a signal between two bacteria, like one's the transmitter, one colony, it transmits a certain molecule. Then this molecule travels through this channel, this fluid channel, And the receiver is another colony of bacteria that receives those molecules. And when they do, they change. I think in this particular one, they actually fluoresce when they receive the molecules. So, and this is why when we mention luciferase or others are looking at things lighting up either in people's blood or on their skin, you're probably looking at one of several different types of technologies or implementation of something that glows. So that's one experiment. The other experiment on the right is an earthworm experiment where they subject this earthworm to a bunch of probes and needles along the length of the earthworm because its nervous system is literally a solid line of conductive nervous tissue, like a cable. And they're basically sending signals to through this poor earthworm to try to get the reaction time, the signal pulse width, because the earthworm nervous system is something they can use as kind of like an analog to the human nervous system. So
Right.
this is another experiment they use continuously with sending signals through the earthworm experiment. And one on the lower left is a fascinating one. This is dealing with optogenetics. And in this particular case, the computer is sending a light source pulses to a vat that contains bacteria. And so this bacteria has been programmed or trained to take these optical pulses of light. It doesn't have to be visible, by the way. You know, light can also mean microwave or terahertz frequencies. All right, can take light and turn that light into, they say a proton, but it's actually a hydrogen atom. And that hydrogen atom will change the pH of the fluid that the bacteria colony is in, making it more acidic. That's
Right.
what happens if you start adding hydrogen within that fluid. It becomes more and more acidic. So, I mean, that also starts, and again, this is written in 2019. So we have to start thinking about some of the things that people are experimenting with having their pH altered with what's happened recently over the last couple of years. So that was another, and that's that whole point is also to show that they can affect change within something that's under study by measuring its pH, the change in the pH. Okay. And then the
Okay.
last one, the one on the right, is again using bacteria that's within a hydrogel matrix, and this hydrogel matrix is attached to a gold electrode, and the bacteria or these things would act as transmitters or receivers of information or molecules, and that will turn into an electrical signal that will be picked up by the gold electrode.
So could that be what we just looked at up here on this slide with the hydrogel and then these payload capsules inside of it?
Yeah, so this is, again, this is application of research that, and this is why it's important to have the microscope.
Yeah.
With the millions of white papers that are out there, it's when you start putting it to the microscope and start listening to people's testimonies of how they felt what's happened the last couple of years, can you start drawing a picture, okay, which technologies of all the researchers, of all the universities that receive government funding are actually being applied today, are actually being
Right.
put out there in the open environment into some kind of wet work experiment, and I feel like that's what we're saying.
All right. Just want to briefly, if you need some kind of overarching title to look into, it's human augmentation, which it's the human enhancement is the natural, artificial, or technological alteration of the human body in order to enhance physical or mental capabilities. That's just one of many definitions, but what we're seeing is what they call human augmentation. This is a document from the Ministry of Defense. It's called Human Augmentation, the Dawn of a New Paradigm. This is one of the pages from it where they're basically explaining how this is what they've been working on. These
Yeah,
are
yeah.
what
So we came from a chimpanzee,
Right there. If you
and
buy evolution.
yeah, yeah. And at some point, they just decided to stop evolving into humans, right? Because
right.
that's how this works. So we've never in history observed any sort of ape or monkey or whatever they say we came from in the
Mhm.
process of evolving. Just at
Yeah,
some
yeah, the
point they
transition
said,
fossils.
yeah, they
Yeah.
said we're just going to stop doing this now. Gaps all throughout the fossil fuel records, and that just means that, guys, this is just the next step. We just have to become cyborgs because that's what
There
happens
you
when you
go.
evolve from apes. Wow, just incredible. This is
So,
ridiculous. I'm pretty sure I've read this Ministry of Defense document, you two may be able to correct me if I'm not mistaken. This makes the case. I think I even covered it. This makes the case, as with all of their sort of documents on cybernetics and human augmentation.
Yes.
They talk about the super soldier. And
Yep.
it's mainly around that super soldier discussion because that's introducing it does a couple of things. It's like, oh, well, we've already done this to our soldiers and it's helped them. Also, it normalizes it, and we wouldn't harm our own soldiers. So then it can come down to the rest of humanity, right? This is how all these documents are framed.
Yes.
Yeah, that's how they're framed. And, you know, so if people need like government documents to prove that this is a real thing that they're doing, then there's one of many. There's so many documents out there. And it's also called biodigital convergence, right? So that's, you know, go look at biodigital convergence. This is one of many articles and papers talking about it. What biodigital convergence is it's essentially the merging of biology and digital technology with the aim of creating new technologies and applications that incorporate biological processes. So as part of the white paper war thing that we're going to talk about in a bit, there's been a lot of like terminology thrown around to confuse people. It's like, don't call it this, call it this. Don't call it this, call it that. Everything we're talking about here, this is what it is. It's transhumanism, it's biodigital convergence, it's human augmentation. There's many different names for it, but
Yes.
they're changing humanity and they're using nanotechnology to do it. Okay, so this is us trying to put it all together to try to help explain how this all works together. Okay, so we got 3 columns here. The first step is the building blocks. So we're going to put together the nanotech, the graphene, the bacteria, the yeast, the parasites, the venom, and EMF, because again, is it this? Is it that? Is it the other thing? It's all of
It's
it.
choice E.
And this is how they do it. First, you need building blocks, which are transhumanism building blocks. These are some examples of building blocks: heavy metals, quantum dots, nanotech, GMO yeast, GMO bacteria, synthetic parasites, cesium-137, hydrogels, microplastics, and there's many more. Those are the building blocks, right? They put those inside of human bodies, and then they are activated. These blocks are activated and controlled by electromagnetic frequencies through the secret network known as the wireless body area network, or the W-band, that's connected to every human body and every other wireless network, including space satellites and autonomous weapon systems. And only a few people, like governments, actually have control over this wireless body area network.
Do we know which ones?
We can probably suspect which ones.
Tell me what, because I asked you that.
Well, I think it's probably it's probably more than G8, probably the greater G20, something along those lines.
Yeah.
And not just it would probably be higher up military, and I would say private families at this point. Private families of defense contractors would probably have access to this network. Everyone else is given permission to pay to play. I think that's kind of service they're running. But that's my opinion based on everything we're finding here. Who's actually benefiting from this?
Who's benefiting from it? Who's funding it? Certain people that are funding it would have access to some, maybe not all, but definitely militaries at the highest, sort of military officials at the highest levels, I would think, because they're involved in this.
I mean, when you look at what we're talking about, it does make things. You look at the way war is being fought right now, and what we're being shown on TV with men wearing camouflage with guns with bullets, is like that's archaic compared to what's actually out there right now, what's happening right now, real time. So you don't want to say it's a distraction what's going on around the world, but because lives are being lost, so their eyeballs stay fixed to what's happening and not on this. Where things are going real time. And I'm just going to bring this briefly, but we have the strikes happening right now with what's going on in
port strikes.
In ports. And some of that real concern is automation coming in and doing the work of hundreds of people. Because there are places right now, like in China, where they have large machines doing all this work, and they're doing it through automation.
Yes.
And something that combined to what we're talking about today is something that is a real concern. And I think with the amount of money that some of these establishments are looking at saving by doing this, and they're very sadistic. But I mean, I see that they would have distractions out there to keep us fixed from not looking at this. So
Absolutely. But it's
And
not
so,
just that. It's the crises, the manufactured wars that actually accelerate us to the point where the general public will just accept this in a point of desperation. Like they'll just accept a digital ID because they now can't access their bank accounts because there's been a cyber attack and we need to protect against it with their digital vaccine, like the WEF says. Or, they are so desperate for food and the government breadline's there and they say, oh, well, you need to give us your biometrics in order to eat today. Whatever the case may be, this is the life, the situation they're manufacturing in order to get people to the point of desperation. Well, they will accept anything because desperate people will literally beg for help, whatever
yes,
it looks like.
exactly.
and so to continue putting this together, so you got the building blocks, you got the W band or the secret network to activate the building blocks with EMF. Then this is all done through Tesla phoresis, which causes the building blocks to grow structures inside of your body that can be controlled by an outside force. Different frequencies send commands to different building blocks, instructing the nanotech to cause things like turbo cancer, all kinds of disease, release payloads like venom, mind control. We did a whole neuroscience presentation with you showing how that's done, and also death. We're going to show you.
So let me just, sorry, Hope, if I can pause you there, just on the payloads. I want people to understand that if you haven't seen yet our investigation into Ido Bachelet of Bar-Ilan University in Israel, please go back, because this man, this top scientist that partnered with Pfizer in 2015, all the way back in 2013, was talking about how they can release these robots. He can fit 1,000 billion robots into one injection, and they can either pre-program them or even in real time program them to release these payloads to cure cancer or help someone with paralysis or whatever the case may be. Now, what do you think happens when someone like Pfizer gets their hands on that technology? Well, maybe Ido Bachelet's intentions were actually pure. I don't know the man. I can't say what he was doing when he was bringing this out to the public, although history would show that generally they do that to normalize these things. But I don't know him and I can't lay a charge against him other than he's partnering with Pfizer, one of the largest criminal organizations in history. So there's a red flag. But what do you think that someone like Pfizer would do with this technology? What do you think that vaccine manufacturers are going to do with technology that can be programmed, as per Ido Bachelet's own words, like an Xbox controller? They can release whatever payloads they want to quote unquote cure illnesses. Well, we see what those cures look like now. They look like turbo cancer. They look like sudden death. This is a reality.
Yes.
Yeah, and there's, when I think of releasing a payload, for me, that's my answer to the sudden deaths, people just being totally fine and then all of a sudden just dropping, right? Some of the things that we've seen at these concerts where they put a frequency out on the crowd and people all start having heart attacks.
And they just die.
And they just die. Or it could be a slow release. It could be like, do you know how many people have gotten diabetes since the administration of these shots and things? So there's
this has been my theory, Hope. When I spoke with Todd Callender and Lisa McGee, when they found this database of all the different illnesses that can be programmed into someone who's had the injections in real time, it can be programmed or pre-programmed or whatever the case may be. I thought, oh my gosh, they've devised a plan where they can, through a staggered approach, kill people in different ways without them realizing this all links back to the shot. Because we realize, but others wouldn't, because one person has cancer, the next person has heart problems, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, the spike protein isn't this intelligent. Something else is going on here.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. And I'm going to bring that up in just 2 slides, actually.
Okay.
The kingdom of bacteria. So I wanted to show everybody, if you haven't seen, this is just a 1-minute clip of this video from Rice University. You've probably seen this before. This is Tesla This is Tesla phoresis. It's the directed motion of self-assembly of matter at a distance using the near field energy of the Tesla coil. It's a phenomenon that they term Tesla phoresis, and you're watching it happen here. So just picture those little granules there. Those are nanotubes.
Yeah, graphite nanotubes.
Those are graphite nanotubes, but this is the nanotech. And then they do stuff with different frequencies, and they're showing it actually self-assembling into wires.
Do you know how many video games, and we were talking about super soldiers before, I confess I really enjoy playing video games. And I've played Call of Duty in the past, and you see this pre-programming of these, cyber soldiers creating alternate realities, and there's always graphene, always graphene lattices in the background. You see even oh gosh, I can't remember the name of the altered carbon, the graphene lattices. It's just everywhere, and then we've even got artists that have released this stuff. I think Lady Gaga was another one that had all this graphene black goo. They in their minds, the future of humanity is controlled through graphene, and it looks, so many of their music clips and shows have this process sort of in the background subliminally.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, we first saw this video years ago.
3 years ago. So.
Three years ago or something, and it was like, wow, so I just wanted to show this because it's a real visual for anybody who hasn't seen this yet. Because when we say stuff like this, that they take building blocks, they throw EMF at it, and then it causes these things to build in your body. This is it in action. That's just an example.
And that's just one platform, this is just one mode.
Yeah. So this is a real breakthrough that came out of that conference. This is Dr. Edward Group. He put an incredible presentation together. I just summarized it here in this one slide. Weaponized GMO yeast. They have genetically modified yeast or brewer's yeast to produce toxins and proteins and put it in everything. An operation from the CIA in the 1960s commenced to get everyone addicted to sugar, alcohol, and white flour.
The food of yeast.
This is to feed the bioweapon of GMO yeast to carry out their main nanotechnology systems. The nanotech in the body is being produced by the yeast.
Right.
This is converting your body into a system that they can control through frequencies. Here's some of the things that yeast can do. It's a test bed for CRISPR-Cas9 technology or gene editing. Yeast is used with graphene in the human body. Yeast produces diseases such as Alzheimer's, diabetes, turbo cancer, and so much more. Yeast can produce proteins such as spike protein and venom inside the body.
Yeast can produce heavy metals in the body. Yeast can be controlled by EMF. Yeast can produce microplastics in the body and hydrogels. Yeast can carry different nanotech inside of your cells like a Trojan horse.
Wow.
So he has a huge presentation with slides and everything. I'll put the link.
That's
here.
why we really.
This is just a small summary of what he was talking
you never
about.
really need to see the presentation.
It was really mind blowing, and it was like the big boom. And this is what you were talking about earlier. The Department of Energy has a database of 470,000 pathogens that are patented and for sale to other countries. They're using GMO yeast to create all these pathogens.
For the pathogens.
To create these diseases from Zika, Marburg, Dengue, name any disease and you can trace it back to the Department of Energy. And I just
want people to think about that. The Department of Energy, why would the Department of Energy have this database of all these? We're not talking about a Department of Health. This is a Department of Energy because it's technology.
It's technology. Exactly. And I did a wonderful interview with Lisa McGee where she talked all about the research behind this. They call it the kingdom of bacteria. And so it's just there, as you said, they want to kill us, but what can I say? Yeah. This was another incredible presentation that was put on by Dr. Henry Ely at the Healing for the Ages conference. Now, what he did was he went and he got a the most recent college textbook that teaches you all about quantum dots in medicine, so that he could read it. Try not to fall asleep while reading it because it's very dry and boring, in order to understand how quantum dots work, so that he could figure out how to dismantle them and how to fight against them.
So you have contrasting agents used in medical applications are filled with quantum dots. You know, like if you have to go for an MRI scan or
Mhm.
or like some kind of radiotherapy, you have to take this fluid, and they're filled with that kind of
Have they
technology.
always been?
Maybe
Probably,
Okay.
probably.
because the whole point is for them to show up on when you scan the
Right.
patient. Chemtrails are filled with quantum dots, and this is what makes things fluoresce under the skin when hit with
Like
frequencies.
barium is a contrasting agent.
Right.
Most of the nanometals would have some kind of reflective. They would fluoresce when you hit them with
You
frequencies.
can look
Right.
up contrasting agents on like Wikipedia even, and you'll find all the different ones that are around. There's a lot of them.
All
Okay.
right, quantum dots are made from heavy metals. General Electric produces contrasting agents with quantum dots. Why? Because they're semiconductors. They also have a semiconductive property. Um, Quantum dots can steal all of your electrons, and that when things are in your body and they take your electrons, just through biology, you lose energy. You feel
Well, this
tired.
is this is why what Dr. Mahacha was saying, they're stealing your life force.
Yes,
Yeah.
And
exactly.
people
This is
didn't
how.
necessarily understand that at the start. It's like, no, this is feeding on your energy. This is what it's doing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Quantum, and in this book, in his presentation, he shows you the book as well. You could buy the book too and read it. But in this book, it literally describes how the quantum dot captures your electrons. It
Wow.
steals your energy. So this is just backing up what Dr. Mahasha was saying.
Okay. And quantum dots embed into your cells and incorporate into your DNA.
Yeah, they
Okay.
they dig right in. There's you know. So with that said, that we've seen a lot of like, well, they're finding it in the vaxxed and the non-vaxxed, and
Mhm.
I just want to bring this to everybody's attention that nano.gov, the National Nanotechnology Initiative, with I don't know how much money is behind it
Most
now.
government back. So
It's huge. It's got a
Huge.
huge budget. It's been around for 20 years.
yeah.
So for 20 years, they have been developing nanotechnology and putting it in the food and the air and the water and everywhere else. And then they advanced their technology even more with the COVID injections, right? So yes, you're going to find unvaccinated people with nanotechnology in their blood because they've been putting it into everything for 20 years.
I will
And
say though that prior to the rollout of the shots, a lot of the pathologists I was speaking with or microscopy experts I was speaking with said that they were not seeing this in it. Now, my theory of
yeah,
this in people, my theory is that perhaps this is a shedding phenomenon.
Mm.
yeah,
Nanotechnology shed.
I think so too. I think it's a shedding phenomenon. I think that they did an entire system upgrade. So
Yeah.
while this is just me thinking out loud here, right? So they were putting, they were injecting everybody. There is the shedding phenomenon, but they also did all kinds of stuff to the infrastructure. They were putting up all the new 5G towers. They were
Yes.
implementing all the metamaterials. All of these things started coming out at the same time as well. So there's a lot of
So they
different.
tested on Morgellons victims prior to this.
Yes.
And
Yes.
sort of this
Yes.
was them working at perfecting their technology before they did it worldwide.
Yes,
Yes.
they must have come to some conclusion that compelled them to say, well, okay, we have to go through with the injections.
Yeah.
And again, I just want to address also the thought that well, it makes no difference if I got vaccinated or if I didn't take the shots, right? It makes no difference then, right? And it's like that is not, I don't believe that to be true. I believe that there's a very large reason why they spent the amount of money,
Yes.
time, and energy injecting billions of people with this bioweapon. They needed it in order for things to work better. So while everybody does have nanotechnology in them, I think that you're definitely much better off if you haven't taken any of those shots. Or if you've taken a shot, at least you stopped taking the shots.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
people that continue to take shots and they take these causation agents, and it's like, can you really help them at that point?
Mm.
So because a lot of this stuff can be undone and you can heal from a lot of this stuff. It's going to take a long time. There's no magic
You
bullet
have to
for
change
it.
your lifestyle.
Yeah, you know, but
Can you just take us through the pre-modern examples of nanotechnologies there? I find that interesting.
yeah, this is sorry for my voice, guys. I've had a little cold, so I'm kind of
It's
getting
all
over
right.
it. A little scratchy. But the nanotechnology, this is from this National Nanotechnology Initiative website. So if you go to there, you'll find the timeline, and it starts at pre-modern examples. So you've got like this 4th century cup. It's an example of dichroic glass, colloidal gold.
Yeah, it's nanometals inside the glass allow it
Wow.
to glow a certain color when it's shown from when light's from the inside.
Yeah, so
Pretty
Wow.
cool.
and I just have a little screenshot of that here, but if you go to the website, it takes you through nanotechnology from the very beginning all the way through, and when they came out with quantum computers and all of these different things. It's all on this website. And I was looking this up because a couple years back when COVID was in full swing, I was trying to find like a timeline to compare technology with the legal changes that were made and all the different governments, and also with the COVID rollout, to see if I could line things up. And so that's when I found this nanotechnology website
That's
here
very
that
interesting. So,
shows.
by the way, the NNI is receiving funding directly from the Biden administration, but the Biden administration to develop a universal nanotechnology vaccine. So that is, and in that federal budget announcement, they actually say that existing nanotechnology vaccines include the COVID-19 vaccine. Like they tell
Yes,
you.
yes.
Well, it's
Yeah.
20 years old, so how many administrations have they survived?
Yes.
So with that said, we just want to talk a tiny bit about this white paper wars concept. And this is a slide from a presentation that Dr. Lee Merritt did recently. Um, she was quoting Yuval Noah Harari. We all just adore this guy, don't we? Right?
Mhm.
Censorship no longer works by hiding information from you. Censorship works by flooding you with immense amounts of misinformation, of
Yes.
irrelevant information, of funny cat videos until you're just unable to focus.
Yeah.
So what Dr. Lee Merritt was describing in her presentation is that she, as a doctor, a Navy spinal surgeon, I believe, right?
By trade. Yeah.
She and other doctors in the field who were trying to figure out what's going on with COVID, they were getting flooded with white papers. Like it was like ambush, right? And the whole point of that was to just try to overwhelm people with information. And so we're seeing that right now online. We're seeing how there's like people just throwing like long lists of tons and tons and tons of white papers and being like, read all that. And it's like, what does it even mean? Right.
Yeah.
So we think that this is one of these tactics, but white papers are how scientists communicate.
Yes. And it's not just the white papers, by the way. This principle that Harari is talking about applies to all areas of information. So they are purposely putting out their own conspiracy theories, if you will, to discredit actual conspiracy research. And so it gets people to the point where, and we've seen this, I've seen this for the past 2 years or so, actually, or at least for the past year, people are just in a frenzy. They don't know who to trust anymore. They're skeptical of absolutely everything that comes out, which I understand.
Yes.
And you should be. You should be skeptical and you should do your due diligence and verify everything. Don't believe me. Go and research yourself. I want people to always live that way. But they're at the point where it's like, can't trust anyone. It's
Yeah,
really,
yeah.
they develop a paranoia.
Yes, and yeah, some days who doesn't feel like that, right?
Of course.
Um, but why, as far as scientists go, to control the narrative and to control the scientists, you have to control the white paper publishing
Mhm.
houses. A lot of them are intelligence owned anyway.
Yeah.
One publisher controls most of them,
Yep.
right? Doctors are flooded with white papers to confuse, right? White papers are written for grants. So white papers, as far as communicating, industry communicates, academia communicates with one another through the white paper. White papers are also written for grants, so there's a money incentive, You know, if
Yes.
you needed to get funding for your laboratory, which has your graduates in there, young, bright-eyed graduates working to get the results you hope they get, right? White papers can be fraudulent, and the white papers are normally, a lot of the good ones are behind either paywalls or paywalls plus you have to be someone of a
Remember.
university credential, yes,
Yes.
or work for some kind of industry in the pharma in order to get access to it.
And
Right.
the other
And
thing that I've noticed with these papers, sorry to cut you off, Hope, the other thing I've noticed is that they're written in a way where they already know the outcome.
yep,
Yes.
It's there to
yes.
convince you that this is the way we need to go. And by the way, give us your money. Like that's what it is.
Dr. Lee Merritt gave, I'm just going to read a little from my hand notes here from her presentation. She gave a little bit of the history about how white papers came to be. So she said back during World War II, Charles Galton Darwin, who's the grandson of Charles Darwin, and Alexander Fleming, they went to the British government and they basically said, we really need a better way to publish these scientific and medical papers because we don't know what the German and Japanese governments were doing. So
Mhm.
the British government owned the largest publishing for medical papers in the world at that time. It was called Butterworths. It was also owned by MI6. So the intelligence agencies owned all of the medical scientific publishing white papers at that time. So then Springer Verlag came to be. They merged like the Springer company with I think it was the German company, and everything is published by them. And this was back then. So they're all owned by the same publishing company. They're all controlled by the same publishing company. And the first editor of all of those papers, all those white papers, was Robert Maxwell, Ghislaine Maxwell's father.
Wow.
It wasn't a it wasn't a doctor, it wasn't a scientist, it was an intelligence agent. And you can go into his history, so
About
you
that.
have,
Yes.
and you know who he is and what he represents. So these are the people that control these white papers and where this stuff is coming from so that they can control the narrative and intercept communication so that the rest of the real scientists that have skills, some of which are given to them by God, so that they can go and look and see and try to figure things out, because science really is only just the study of how God does business,
Yeah.
in my perspective, right? So it's like they're trying to help humanity, but it's like you got to have these peer-reviewed white papers, and this is part of this white paper
They
war.
accepted through the
So
gatekeepers. Yeah.
yeah,
I find that interesting because, whenever people that are sort of new to waking up, newbies or surface level conspiracy researchers, right? Um, and I'm referring to, sort of mainline conservative media, if you will.
Mhm.
And they'll think about the Epstein thing and they'll say, oh, these people are so sick and follow the money. And that's a really popular line, follow the money. And yes, the money can give you a clue, but it is so much bigger than just money. This
Yes.
is
Yeah.
this is about serving an agenda that is leading to their ultimate goal, which is the mark of the beast. And people, until people realize that, and I know that a lot of our viewers do, they get it because they're smart people. Until people really get that, every single step is it's not just about money. They have all the money. They can just print more. They can just add more zeros to their bank accounts. It's really
Yes.
not their main priority. And when people think total control, they don't understand why do they want total control? What is the point? It is to get us to this point. You have intelligence agencies, and yes, they do these disgusting things and do horrible things to children and everything, but it is all serving a much, much greater picture. So that's just
I got
further evidence of that.
this is going to knock your socks off, Maria.
All right.
When they all got together to create this conglomerate white paper publishing back then, they gave it a new name. They called it Pergamon Press. And when you look
Pergamon
up the word
Press.
Pergamon Press, it means the seat of Satan.
Oh my gosh.
Where's that medical
That's
industry coming from? Huh?
that's crazy. That is absolutely crazy. I'm not surprised. I'm not
Yeah.
surprised. You
So
know,
with that, let's round this out with some amazing breakthroughs
great.
that have come through. These are just like a list of things that people can go research. A lot of it was at this conference. You can go look at everybody's individual bodies of work because, and we definitely recommend work with somebody that's trained and knows how to do these things. But here's just a small list.
That's why the conference was so valuable, because they actually had just a day of solutions. Is amazing.
Right.
So chelating nanotechnology building blocks with EDTA, DMSA. One of those doctors that did the presentation, actually, he went through this process and was measuring the heavy metals that was in his system before and after he was going through. And it was astounding how much heavy metals was in his body
That
and
was
how much he was
Dr.
able to get
Ely.
out over like a three-day period or
It was
so.
great. Yeah, Dr.
Wow.
Ely's chelating
He did
nanotechnology.
it to himself, and he went through
Great
that process.
presentation.
I saw an article shared by Dr. Mahaicha, which was actually from the bad guys, talking about how chelation works to destroy nanotech. So very
Yeah.
interesting. Mhm.
Yep.
Also, you have to think that for the people who are hatching these plans, they got to have some kind of out themselves. I mean, they're
Oh,
living
yeah.
on a lot of them living in North America. They're living on the planet too. You can't tell me they're not inhaling these heavy metals. Also, I just think that they're crazy, and they actually think they can clean themselves too.
I
So
bet you they're
they're looking at
chelating.
these solutions. I bet you they're chelating regularly. They're probably doing all kinds of detoxes.
Yep.
So they have the liver detox. Liver is a very important organ. As far as your ability to be able to remove these things and take in as a filter to absorb all the toxins in the body. You have to be able to get that out of the liver as well. Grounding. I don't know if we mentioned grounding later towards the end. We only got like a few slides left.
Next slide, we're going to
Sure.
talk more about grounding.
And nicotine therapy. Dr. Brian Artis he did a very amazing presentation dealing with nicotine. Also, he showed some footage from Lakita Columna on what nicotine does to some of those chips. When exposed to nicotine, they literally explode under the microscope. It's an amazing thing to watch.
Have you seen that,
Wow.
Maria?
This from Lakita Columna.
I haven't
What
seen
they-
it. No.
I was going to put a video here. I'm sorry I didn't put it, but they took a tobacco leaf. They put some hot water. They made like a little tea out of it.
Tea.
They took a drop of that and they put it onto a slide that had all this nanotech on it. And you watch with your own eyes, and it was like a landmine field. It blew up all
So
of the
just to be clear, we're not telling everyone to start going out and smoking a pack a day. This is
No, no, no.
different.
No.
This is different, guys.
I just encourage people to just do their research and look into it.
See and look at the findings.
Understand about receptors in your body and all these different things, and take a look at other people's studies and results, because there's some interesting stuff out there. So
Have you guys got a link to the conference?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we're definitely going to link to the conference.
All right, we'll have that in the show notes for everyone watching, so they can go back and watch it. I'm gonna definitely do the same myself.
Yeah, some of these things are just
Bee
incredible.
pollen also has near miraculous abilities to be able to help remove and to isolate the technology inside the body as well.
Yeah, it's called I think it's called propolis, bee pollen. So anyway, there's like bee pollen supplements that you can take because it actually, there's great studies on that as well. So
Okay.
And in addition to that, we have the EMF protection that we focus on. Now, if you turn off the EMF, it stops the nanotech from capturing your life force, because you're basically not giving it any energy for it to assemble. Nanotech doesn't work well in an alkaline environment, so you want to keep your body in alkaline. And as we mentioned before, just the existence of the technology in your body over time makes your body acidic. So you always have to kind of watch that.
So with that said, we've explained how our products work before, but we want to bring a new perception into this, because we hear a lot of people talking about grounding and how good grounding is for you. So Tivon, could you just take us through grounding and how orgonite actually is a way to ground as well? Okay,
so your grounding is you being connected to the earth, normally just bare skin on the ground, on the grass, at the beach, or in the pool. Your body is absorbing electrons from the environment, from the earth, to replenish your energy. And it boosts. There's all kinds of studies now, even from that you can find on national health sites, dealing with grounding, reducing inflammation, boosting immune response, decrease the healing time. And basically it comes down to the tissues that touch the skin, that's touching the ground, actually physically draw electrons into the fibers of the skin. the paper I actually cite, it goes more into that. I wish I can. There's a whole study on grounding, a whole presentation on that. So wound increases decreases the wound healing time, prevention and treatment of chronic inflammation. If you have chronic illness or chronic disease of some sort, it reduces that, reduces the response of that, and also reduces the uh, the illness of
Autoimmune diseases. Yep.
that kind of thing. So
Mhm.
now with orgone or orgonite, what people have also realized is that there've been experiments done. Basically, when orgonite is inside in a toxic field or immersed in radiation, people have done things where they've taken microwave ovens and they put in the composite on top of the microwave oven and they turn on the microwave oven. They emit negative ions. Orgonite emits negative ions because of its components inside. They get stimulated and it creates a grounding effect. So when you have these components or these composites around your body, it creates a grounding effect. Also, it's high surface area. These composites have a high surface area, which means it absorbs a lot of the RF energy that's around the body. So you feel more relaxed and basically we had a couple of emails dealing with pain reduction. One having he had knee surgery and he had a sleeping pod around his knee, and he tells us that the pain has gone away. So we had
Wow.
pain reduction. We also had one last week where a customer had a husband that had sleeping problems like sleep apnea, or snoring very loudly, and basically having problem with his breathing while he's sleeping. And she would put the sleeping pod under his pillow so that just to see what would happen, just anything to because they've been married for years. And she said that within the first night of him doing that, his sleep apnea symptoms had gone away. It was subsiding.
Wow, that's amazing.
And she left it on for like 2 or 3 days. And again, it was like he didn't have those problems. He doesn't know this is going on, by the way. She takes the sleeping pod, removes it from the pillowcase, and then within a day, within a 24-hour period, when he goes back to sleep, so the second night, all his symptoms come back again.
Wow.
And so she put the sleeping pod back, and the symptoms subsided.
Yeah.
And so her doing this experiment for her, and we get emails like this all the time. It was for her. It convinced her that indeed, I mean, these things our body is subjected to all kinds of stimuluses during the night, and depending on what's inside your body, things with your toxic load. Some of them are more influenced by others. I used to have a problem. That last email really influenced me because I used to have a lot of problems with sleeping, especially things like shortness of breath or losing my breath and snoring and almost like sleep apnea type stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Now, fortunately, over the years, since we've been actively changing our lifestyle, I don't have those problems anymore. But it hit a nerve in me when a customer shared with us their experiences with a loved one. And so I wanted to share that also.
That's
And
amazing.
people are saying too that one thing you can do, which will be really important for your health and really important for setting you up so that you can chelate these things out, is to sleep while grounded.
Yes.
So
Right.
there's all different kinds of grounding systems out there. You can't really just go run to the beach every single day, as much as I would love to do that in order to go grounding. So that's why I think that's another reason why our sleeping pods are our #1 bestseller. We've got like 4 or 5 of them just scattered all over the bed at this point, because it grounds you while you're sleeping. And it
Right.
allows your body to get recharged so that you can get good rest and you can boost your immune system. So that's just one of the many benefits. And also, I want to talk about the phone as well, because when they have grounding mats to put your phone on,
Yeah.
because the phone is what activates this network of EMFs inside of that technology in your body. So
Mhm.
you really should never have your phone on your body. And if it's not on, if you're using it, or if it's an emergency, and if you're not using it, it should be on some kind of grounding mat. So the phone shields that we create is a way to ground your phone as well. You stick those on your phone. So just think of that, the charge plates as well. You could use them for many different things, but you can also put them underneath your chair to ground you while you're sitting in your chair at your
Oh,
desk.
okay. So it's not just for, preserving food. I always thought that they were more for those types of things, but it will actually help you personally while you're sitting. That's great.
Yeah,
Yes.
we've had a lot of customers that have come back with all different kinds of amazing, wild testimonies of different things they're doing with their products and how it's making differences. And I think that the grounding is a real part of it. So yeah, so these are the things that we've got: the sleeping pods, the charge plates, the phone shields, the
Listen,
pendants.
sorry, I'll just say I have a friend that has ADHD and has had
Mhm.
amazing results from grounding. So
Awesome.
this is super important.
We have a neighbor who
Yeah.
had a child with ADHD, and we gave them a bunch of our pendants as gifts, and the child would hold on to the pendant
Mhm.
and totally calm down.
Wow.
And it was absolutely incredible. So there's something really, there's something real here. Our business, our stuff is so in demand. It's awesome. And we thank God for it. We've had so many customers. We've helped so many people.
Yeah.
So we just wanted to say thank you, Maria, for giving us the opportunity to put
Yes.
together these presentations so that we can share this knowledge with everybody. And also, if you want to support Maria and the work that she does, we have a link for her here. Please use that link. So if you want to purchase any of our products, Maria can get a commission from that to keep her going strong with the incredible work that she's bringing forth as well.
Well, I really appreciate that, guys. I would promote you either way, but the fact that you offer support to Z Media and everything that we do is such a blessing, and people know that they're getting very high quality products as well. It's a win-win for everyone. This is how we keep getting the truth out. So I'm so grateful to you both. I am so incredibly grateful for your time today and taking us through all of that. And I'll tell you what, I'm so encouraged because we're seeing the culmination of all of the people's research over these past few years coming together now in a real way that can actually help people. And that is exactly what we need. We need that moving forward. We need more scientists involved. We need people to consider the technological aspect, not just the biological aspect, because we're not dealing with biology. We are dealing with synthetic biology. We are dealing with tech in our bodies. And so I'm so encouraged, and thank you both so much. And again, the link for that presentation is going to be in the show notes. The link for Hope and Tivon's products are also in the description below. So go there, take a look. You're supporting Z Media, you're supporting them, and you're supporting yourself with products that can actually help you as well. Hope and Tivon, we're so grateful for you. Thank you so much.
It's so great to be here. Thank
Yes,
you
it's good
again.
to see you again, Maria. Thank you.
Really appreciate you both, and I'm sure we'll speak soon. God bless.
God bless
Take care.
you.
Bye.